I'm going to call the Committee of Whole Council meeting for August 8th to order and welcome everyone. I'm going to start with the acknowledgement of treaties of peace and friendship. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Wolastoqiyik, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Thank you. Walalan. Next is the oath of office. We do hereby accept the office of council and will diligently, faithfully, and impartially discharge to the best of our ability the duties of the office as may be imposed upon us by law. Next is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes?
If I may, Your Worship, just like to add a general comment concerning the Beldoon Days activities, if I may.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then we'll have the motion to adopt the agenda.
M 2022-106, that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Okay.
With changes, with addition, amendment.
Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
On the question, all those in favor say aye. Motion passed. Yep.
Just real quickly, Councillor Borker, was there an item that you wanted to remove? I thought there was one that we had in a closed session that you had intended to remove.
Yeah, the closed session, item 8, I'll remove that from the agenda. 8.1 also.
Okay. So with those changes, we'll have the vote again. On the question, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. Next is, there are no presentations, I believe, so next is the council. And I'll begin. I had a brief meeting with our MLA, Marco LeBlanc, on Thursday morning. It was brief. We had it here. As I mentioned to council, there was no set agenda, but there were a couple of issues that were addressed. I think council had wanted our DTI situation in general to be addressed, our roads, the condition of our roads, to see what he might be able to do. And as expected, he said, he supported, he understood our frustration. He had expected that if, he has the opportunity to support us and to help us in getting some help in terms of that service, that he would do so. And then he is going to set up a meeting with CAO Lee to try and see what CAO Lee feels are the priorities as council sees it. He also mentioned that the financing, I believe, for the pickleball court that we had asked for was officially in. And he also mentioned that, and I think this is something that we discussed before, that the Village of Beldoon tends to leave some money on the table. He had even mentioned like our festivals that, I mentioned to him, I said, it might be a bit understandable this summer, considering sort of everything that's going on, the staffing, et cetera. But he just mentioned that there was money there that we should really try and find a way to apply for. And so, again, I mentioned when he had that conversation with CAO Lee that he should mention some specifics because he was just talking in general terms. And that was pretty much the gist of our conversation. And he did mention that he would be willing to come and speak with council because I think that was something that council wanted to hear from him as well. And he was willing to do that and is going to set that up with CAO Lee as well. So if council doesn't have any questions or observations on that?
I want to thank you very much for that information. I just want to add on the pickleball court, a lot of the tennis courts are being switched over. When I was in Kingston, I went to a soccer game for my granddaughter, and there was people there of all ages playing. They had a court, and they were playing pickleball. It was really nice to see, and I was wondering what was happening with ours, so I'm happy that you clarified that. And that's good for the money for the events. I think there's so much money out there that we don't know that's there, that we would be able to get and maybe make things bigger and better for the events that we have in the community. This year, it was everything was really great, but yeah, thank you.
Marco was at the breakfast on Saturday morning in our community and made himself known and present to the residents, which was lovely. Yeah, it was a nice gesture on his part to show up.
I'd just like to add that I recognize that our salmon barrier is probably more of a federal issue than it is a provincial issue, but I believe that with assistance from our provincial MLA, and my point to all this is that we're probably a little bit late for this year, but the village of Beldoon has invested literally millions of taxpayers' dollars in the development and maintenance of the salmon barrier, which I believe is a tremendous, tremendous asset in the identity of our community. So, however, the federal and the provincial governments have not contributed one red penny to the maintenance, the upkeep, anything to that salmon barrier. And I believe it's about time that we as a council apply the pressure both provincially and federally to see what they can come up with. The federal government, I know for a fact, spends millions of dollars on the Miramichi, and we get nothing. So with that said, maybe I'd like to say, let's add this to our agenda anytime we're speaking to an MLA, and hopefully we can get Serge Cormier, our MP, to come before council and we can discuss it then. But personally, I believe this should be at the top of our list of things we need to prioritize in the future. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Sorry, I just want to correct something you said. The province has put money into the salmon barrier. That was operated by provincial grants, and there was money put into that project for the construction of that building that's back there.
I think there's also funding that can be applied to the salmon barrier as far as tourism. I think there's lots of grants out there to advertise and sponsor and grow things for tourism, and I think that that's a lost thing that we should be doing and should have been doing. I think that's a lot of other communities are doing that, like Miramichi is known for their salmon and that type of thing, and I think that that's something that we could utilize on as well. So I think that that's some other funding and grants that we should be applying for, is the tourism ones for the salmon barrier.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Burke?
Prior to our break, I discussed a grant for Veta Falls, who is an author within our community and has written multiple books on not only Beldoon, but Jacket River and surrounding communities. It's filled with a lot of information about our history, our culture, where we come from and the community as a whole. She's writing another book and is looking for some funding. So I'm going to suggest that we do have money available in our grant budget. There's money there. So at the next public meeting, I will be bringing forward a motion to make a donation towards the book. And at this moment in time, I'm contemplating the suggestion of about $5,000. So that's where I'm at. So at the next public meeting, that will come forward to be taken out of our grant funding, and council can contemplate their decision, and that'll be at the public meeting in 2 weeks' time.
I was wondering, she already wrote a few books. I think that would be a good idea that we bought some of her books and maybe resell them, and that would also help to put money towards her next book. That's just a suggestion. I'm not sure if it would work or not. Maybe put it at the library for sale and buy some for her library. I think that would be an okay thing to do. I'm not sure if we're able to do it, but I think that, I was just thinking of that when you brought up with the grant, but.
Sorry, just a question for Seoli. Has Ms. Falls actually submitted an application for funding for the publication of that book?
No, there hasn't been an application put in. We can help facilitate that if it comes in. Just something to keep in mind is that I'm sure council is aware, but we can't actually apply grants directly to individuals. We do have to go through an organization. So, which again, if we get to that point, then I can work with Ms. Folds to coordinate that if there is some sort of organization or nonprofit that she's affiliated with or could run that through. But that's another thing that we have to keep in mind.
Has there ever, are her books available at the barrier and at the park for sale? Because these are areas where tourism is a big thing, and I thought as a local writer, she should have some of her work available for tourists to purchase. But I don't know if they're there. I know that I was at the one in Miramichi, and they had local writers and artists who had their items in there for sale. So I was just wondering if maybe there was a way we could implement that into our barrier and park. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason why we wouldn't be able to purchase that stuff and have that made available. It's a good idea, yeah.
Second item I have is basically a discussion on what we should or should not be doing about our Beldoon Port Authority representative. As council is aware, I do have meetings with the Port of Beldoon, and this comes up at every discussion with them. Maybe I would ask that our CAO discuss this with legal, bring this to the attention of council prior to the next public meeting, and hopefully we can have a motion or a discussion of some kind at that time.
So we've gone through those steps. Andre has provided a legal opinion on it. So I don't mind to resend that out to council so that they have that available. I believe that when that went out the last time, there was some communication amongst council on whether or not you wanted Andre to actually come in or set up a virtual meeting. So if there was more detail that you wanted to ask, you had the capability of doing that. But I'll resend that out, the information that he has sent over. He did have an opinion on it, so he's sent that along. So I'll re-forward that, make sure that everyone's aware.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. The last item I
No,
have.
I have something to say on that one.
Okay.
I don't know why this has been taking so long. I'm going to point out again that according to the letters patent for the Port of Beldoon, there is no reason that Kevin Surratt has been excluded from that position. He meets all of the criteria set out by the letters patent. I think it was extremely inappropriate that Mr. Carroll would have interfered with council's process on that. Council made a decision, and we know how we like to pretend that we respect the decisions of council. So I think it's inappropriate that he had not been appointed. And if the port had an issue, they should have dealt with it through their own legal process and not thrown that back on council.
It was my understanding that after a period of time, if there had been no action, we could rescind that motion after 6 months. It happened in May of 2022. We are now in August of 2023 with no movement. So if there's a possibility of rescinding that, I would be in favor of that.
I believe in order to rescind, it would need to be rescinded by one of the council members who voted yes onto it. So my perspective is that there was a decision made of council, and there was nothing shown from the port as to why he could not sit on that. There was information asked for that was not received. So I'm not sure why this is still an issue. So if he's either going to go or on it or not, and I don't think it's fair that somebody else is going to make a decision or sway the decision of council. I mean, it is what it is if they're not going to allow him there. But to rescind a motion, I don't know that that's the right answer.
The last item I have that I just wanted to make a general comment concerning the activities during Beldoon Days. For me personally, as a council, I don't want to speak for all members of council. They're free to make their own comments, but I wish to congratulate the committee of the Beldoon Days organization. They did a tremendous job under some very difficult situations sometimes. The rain didn't help a whole lot, but by the same token, the activities were very well done, very well attended, and I believe they deserve to be congratulated on the effort and the time they put in. With that said, I certainly do, as an executive member of the Royal Canadian Legion, I want to extend my sincere appreciation on behalf of our Legion to the committee, their support, and the activities that the Legion was involved in were a tremendous success. There will be a report coming forward to council so that they will see it in black and white, but at the end of the day, it is probably the biggest Beldoon Days fundraising activity we've had in a tremendously long time. I've been affiliated and doing it for 18 years, and there's no doubt in my mind that on behalf of the Legion, I congratulate the committee and send our sincere appreciation on their support to the Legion. Thank you very much.
Yes, they did a great job this year. I just want to name the names because some of them are overlooked. There's Daryl that worked like hours and hours on this. There's Gina, there's Susan Furlot, Marilyn, Shirley, and all of the people that were, that took and did some events. It was all, I think everything was a success. And if anybody's interested to go to any of these meetings, the meetings are second Monday of each month. And that way there, if there's anybody else with ideas and that feels that, we can revamp or make it better, and I don't know how we could make it better than it was this year, they're all welcome to come to these meetings.
I was just wondering, I had saw there was some people questioning about the horse hall this year and how there was none. And I just, in order to clear up some possible misinformation that's out there, I'm wondering if you can shed some light onto why there was no horse hall this year.
There was, I don't know how, there were concerns, I would state, as opposed to another word. There were concerns about the animals, and that kind of overshadowed the reason why we have it. It is an event that many look forward to, but we had feedback last year, and so this year they decided, we'd set it aside because of the feedback that we did receive. And like I say, it was concerns over the horses. And I know that these horses are raised and trained for this event, but others don't maybe understand that or see it in that way. But that was the reasoning why they didn't put it in this year.
Okay, so
Because of that.
it was the decision of the committee.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Over the feedback that was received.
People felt there was cruelty to animals, to the horses, and we all know that these horses are bred and to do this. But I think that was one of the biggest issues, that people had gone perhaps to some of the meetings or posted things on the event committee with their concern for the animals, and they felt that the horses were being mistreated or it was hard on the horses. And these horses do this. This is their job. And I didn't completely agree to the cancellation, but I don't have a vote. But you have to also respect that the committee went with the feedback that they had at the time.
Well, just for future, I would think that if the people on the committee are getting feedback such as that, they should have directed those people who had their concerns maybe to the SPCA. Because to go off of the concerns of a few people who assume that it's, not treating the animals correctly when you had horses, you know what I mean? Like, where did the term horsepower come from for vehicles? I mean, that's, fields were plowed, so to go off of that for some, I mean, if a horse is being mistreated, whipped or gone without food or gone without water or something, well, then the people who would be dealing with that would be the SPCA. I don't feel that, we should be put into a position to have to, in my opinion, the horse hall brought in a lot of people. A lot of people enjoyed watching it. So to cancel an event that is well received by many over the concerns of a few who, it wasn't even valid concerns. I mean, if the SPCA was to come in and look at it and say, yeah, that's abuse, well, absolutely, shut her down then. But I think that a lot of times in this society and in this day and age, the voices of a few who maybe don't know the information or aren't educated in what they're complaining about, and it shuts it down and ruins it for everybody. So, I don't know, I think that maybe next year you might want to look at having it again.
I just have a question too about, so I'm not sure how much feedback the committee gets on events. I know there was a very vocal group against fireworks and looking at replacing that with something else. So I know I'm going to get asked the question, so how much feedback is the committee looking for to readjust events? I know that question's coming. So I'm just curious because I know there were a lot of people who did not want the fireworks either. And legitimate or not, Marilyn, I know it's coming my way, so I'm going to direct it to you since you'll have the answer.
Well, unfortunately, the fireworks, I understand that as well, because we have a farming area and people do have concerns over the animals. We have thought about the different options, but we have to look at them seriously because the fireworks are our main event. We get people from along the North Shore who come to our village just for the fireworks. So yes, I agree, we need to look at the other options that are available, but that's something that we have to really look into as opposed to taking them away entirely. So that is something that we have thought about, especially after this year. They were already booked and we, had people talking to us about the fireworks. Absolutely, it is something that we are looking into, but like I said, it's our biggest event of the festival, and to try to replace it with another option, we have to make sure that it's viable for us as well.
I'd just like to add too that as far as the fireworks are concerned, if we were to say cancel the fireworks and do a big drone show, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we'd be the first one on the North Shore to do it. So I think that would bring in a lot of people. I don't think we should be canceling the fireworks because it might scare someone's dog or someone's horse. My thought on that is horses were used for hunting, dogs were used for hunting. What did they do when there was a gunshot? What do they do when there's thunder? Animals, just like people, you have to adjust and you have to do things. Like the night of the fireworks, I put my dogs away so that they wouldn't run off if they heard it. People have to take accountability for their own animals, and I understand that with horses it must be hard. But again, what do they do when there's thunder? What do they do when they're hunting? And but for a drone show, I think that could be something that has not been done and would definitely bring people in just to see one because maybe they hadn't. So that I think would be awesome. But that's just my opinion on it anyway. But yeah.
If I may, Your Worship, just a comment, the Beldoon Days activity fireworks have been going on for, I believe, 23 or 24 years that Beldoon Days has been going. There is no activity in the village of Beldoon that draws more people than the fireworks. Zero activities in this community draw more people than the fireworks. With that said, I'm not opposed to adding other activities that may be useful or whatever. But I also believe that the fireworks is the biggest attraction to our community. It is done with respect and professionally and has all the security, and the people are very, very open, and it's just a tremendous activity for our community that draws outside people into our community. So for me, I would recommend that the Beldoon Days activity, Beldoon Days Committee, think long and hard before eliminating it, or, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm not opposed to adding a drone show or whatever it might be, but the fireworks, I think it's the anchor to our community and is looked forward to by many, many people outside this community annually.
Okay. Before I move to Councillor Carmichael, I just want to say a few words too. I just want to thank you, Marilyn, and everyone in the committee for the so wonderful Beldoon Days, the best one we've had in years. And I would say one of the things, most things I was impressed, there's one thing for the committee members to be at the meetings through the year. There's another thing to be at every activity, spending all the hours at the activity, making sure that they're going properly, overseeing them. And every activity that I was at, and I was at a fraction of them, there was always a committee member there, if not two. So that's very impressive to put that amount of time in and dedication. It was a great job. Thank you. And to all the committee members as well. Councillor Carmichael.
Okay, I just wanted to bring this up because it was brought to my attention at one of the meeting that I had gone to have a substitute member of the board of CRSC. I know that the mayor of Bathurst had mentioned to me that they do have a substitute because we all have busy schedule in the winter. Sometimes the mayor can't attend or Councillor Robinson can't attend. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a third person on backup. So there should always be two members at the table. So I just wanted to say that. I don't know if anybody has feedback on that.
Anyone? Okay.
Also, the discussion on revising the time for the committee of whole and regular meetings and the special meetings from 7 o'clock to 6. I know that at the beginning of the meeting it was discussed that maybe 6 o'clock might be a little difficult, but 6:30 if it would work. It's just that we would start our meetings a little early and go home a little early, especially with the winter months. I find that the summer is not an issue, but the winter months are a little bit difficult to you're heading into storms. You don't know what the weather's going to be when you head out. So I just want to know what the people's thoughts on that, if 6 or 6:30 would work better for them, and we could go with the majority of council.
Council?
I'm open to changing it to 6:30, if that's feasible for people. 6 might be a little difficult, but 6:30 is fine for me.
6 wouldn't be possible for me, and 6:30 is sometimes going to be pushing it too, so I would prefer to leave them at 7. Just give you that buffer of time, right? So I've got after-school obligations and whatnot, so 7 o'clock is preferable for me. I know 6 o'clock is not at all feasible.
For myself, I would find 6 difficult. If I end up having to work a little late or whatever, it doesn't give me a whole lot of time to get supper and stuff before council meeting. 6:30 might be doable. But yeah, 6 wouldn't really work all that great for me.
Being retired has its advantages. Makes no difference what time it's at. At the end of the day, I do understand 6 is maybe a little bit early. I would be open to 6:30, and if it's chosen that we leave it at 7, I'm fine with that too.
Whereas Councillor Robinson is difficult to be here at 6:30, we should maybe leave it at 7 as is, and, and if things changes, maybe Councillor Robinson can let us know if we, in the future, if it's feasible for her to change it to a little earlier, but that's fine. Thank you.
Just to note, it is actually written in our procedural bylaw. So if there was a permanent change, we would have to amend the procedural bylaw. But if it was for a set amount of time, we could do that by motion.
Saley?
Okay, the first item that I had was for the conversation that we've been picking back up with the provincial government around the Lorne Fire Department, just for the sake of disclosure and getting the information out to council, and having the conversations that we had with the local government. I did mention to them that I wanted to bring it to council for a discussion. I didn't really know if this had been presented to council before. I've moved all the information over to councilors through email, so if there's any questions on that, please let me know. At this point, really what I'm looking for is I've reached out to the fire chief and to the deputies concerning, I guess, very high level. We did have talks with the government about this before. This has been going on for a few years. They had concerns over the volunteer numbers and how that was going to impact the service level. So they did reach out to Beldoon about taking on this responsibility. So that was a few years ago. Everyone was, the council of the day was on board with it. The fire chief and the volunteers were on board with it. Talks seemed to slow down right before local reform came into play. So my expectation, and I do believe with local government as well, was that those areas, those surrounding areas that we're providing services to, they believed were going to be amalgamated with Beldoon. And if that was the case, we were inheriting that fire department. So we were going to have to kind of deal with it. That didn't happen. That didn't materialize. It does act as a bit of a catalyst for me to find out why that didn't transpire, because I really haven't got a lot of information on that. So we've also kind of opened that door as well. However, for where we are right now, the information I've given back to local government is that I have connected with the fire chief and the deputies. They have no concerns over it. They're already providing the service in that area. I've connected with the fire inspector over concerns that they might have provincially. They, after going through the discussions and weighing the pros and cons, they feel we do have a lot of incentive going on with the fire department, and a lot of updating and training that we're trying to get on board with. While we're going through the process, for the fire inspector, he felt that it made sense to, if this was a step we were going to take, to include it as we go. So to group it in, and if we do, have some more volunteers that come into the fold when we do this, then we can bring them along and do all the adequate training and everything that we need to do. So I have spoken to the fire department. I have spoken to the fire chief. I have spoken to local government. At this point, I just want to know if there's any discussion or if there's any opinion from council on just an adamant no. If this is not something that we should pursue. I definitely did have some issues to begin with. Over the idea with it. There was a lot of work that we had initiated with the Beldoon Fire Department. We were on a good path. We've started a good, strategic alignment, and I didn't want to, my approach was sort of, let's make sure that what we're doing right now in Beldoon, we're doing the best that we possibly can before we start branching out. And then that was sort of the initial approach. After the conversations we had, it did make sense to kind of bring this in if this was something we're going to do. So I did actually just receive further information just this afternoon on the budget side of things, on what the province feels that they can contribute to help us run the station. So I'll move that along to council in the next couple of days. But I think at this point right now, what we're looking for is a bit of a discussion or some direction from council on whether or not this is something that we should pursue, or if we should go back to the local government and say it's not something that we can manage at this time. We don't necessarily need to come up with a steadfast stance right now. Council, if there's any feedback or if there's any information that you're looking for from me, please feel free to reach out. I can get that to you. But I just wanted to let all of council know where this was, the conversations that we were having, and it is something that we could potentially move relatively quickly on in the coming weeks with local government.
I would like to make a comment, if I could, Your Worship. I had a discussion when I was mayor with the province about supplying mutual aid to the outlying areas. I believe our budget is, the province is giving us $26,000 on mutual aid. I know we have an agreement in looking after these communities, and I want to make it very clear that the Village of Beldoon businesses could not survive without the support of those outlying areas, being Nash Creek, Gravel Hill, Lorne. These are very strong supporters of our businesses within our community. What we need to look at, in my opinion, is that the mutual aid agreement is a fraction of what it should be when you look at the cost of running a fire department. The province will be the first ones to download that responsibility to, let's say, if Beldoon is willing and does take it on, they would be the first to turn it over to us. The financial end of it is the question. It is Beldoon's biggest risk when you look at the possibilities of what can happen when you're looking at a fire department. It is also to Lorne, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20-minute drive at least to get there. So the risks multiply very, very quickly. So with that said, I believe the province needs to look at what financial contribution they're making to the village to take on that responsibility. And as a taxpayer myself within the Village of Beldoon, we've had discussions about what this does to our insurance rates and that type of thing. So there's no question that the liabilities will expose the village to more issues, which can be a bearing on our tax rate based on fire. So with that said, I just believe that those are the issues that we kind of need to look at very closely and make the province understand that we're not opposed to taking on responsibility. We're opposed to taking on the financial burden that they want to get rid of. So.
I think in the email that Landon sent last week, there's a financial component that the province is committed to. So check that email and you'll see what the province is offering. And I think if the fire chief and the deputy chiefs are on board, I would respect their professional opinion in stating that I would be comfortable with Beldoon taking over the Lorne Fire Department if that's what their determination is.
For my concern is that they're not with us, like if they would have joined in with Beldoon, yeah, sure, no problem. But also, I'm a concern of we got to pay for their fire department. I know there's money coming in and all that, but is it enough to pay if there's more firefighters that needs to be training? We need to repair their fire truck. We need to pay for their building. There's all this to look into. I know there's money that the government is going to offer us, but will it be enough to do that? And what happens if, doesn't the portion of their money go the other way, Upsquesh way, where they're at? It doesn't come our way, so I know the government's going to give us some. So that's my concern. I have no issue because I was all to take them in, but we have to look at the big picture and make sure that everything is covered and that we have enough money to be able to cover for the training and all the other stuff that we're going to also pick up with the department.
I'd just like to add that, Beldoon has a bigger tax base than what Atholville has, a bigger tax base than what Charlotte has. And what Ron said is right. Our businesses in Beldoon would not survive without the support of Lorne and Gravel Hill and Nash Creek and those areas. These are our neighbors, our family members, our friends, the people who support us in business and in other things. So I think that it's very important, as we all know here in Beldoon, to have a fire department. So I think if this community needs our help and our support, I think that if we can be even considering giving $5,000 to a private individual to fund a book, we should be more open to helping our neighbors, family members, and friends who support us. That community is dwindling. There's not many residents back there. It's not a big community. We currently have 2 fire departments for a village that has 1,300 people into it, 1,200 people into it. So maybe we need to start looking at how we're running our own fire department and start being more open to taking in this other community when they need our help, because without their help, a lot of our businesses would not be running.
So Lauren has a fire department, that's my understanding. What areas do they service other than Lauren? Like, where does Nash Creek and Black Point, when something occurs in their municipalities, do we cover them as well? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah, okay, so as Ron alluded to, we have a mutual aid agreement right now with the province, and it does cover Lauren, and it does cover Nash Creek, and so Lauren does have a fire department. So if there's a fire that's called, my understanding, I don't want to speak out of turn, we could get, the fire chief to kind of lay this out for you. But when a call is received in, they were Lauren Fire Department. If there was a fire call in Lauren, they were the first responder. They were the first call. Over the years, what had happened was they didn't have the volunteer numbers that were showing up to the fire. Beldoun was always called as a secondary for support. Over the years, what has happened is dispatch has just automatically called Beldoun. So for the last couple of years, the information that I got today was actually all around the fire calls for the last 4 years. So I'll provide that so we have an idea of how many calls in Lauren there has been, and more specifically around the financial component is detailed financials. So that information, I'll be able to put that out, and it'll give council a very good idea of what it has been cost to run that department for the last 10 years, I believe, 5 years maybe she has in there, and what they've had budget allocated. So that would give us a very good idea. All the points that you guys are raising are excellent. We have already worked out, it's not just the volunteer numbers, right? I mean, that was a strong point that we have, is that our volunteers get paid for calls and training, and the surrounding areas, most or a lot of volunteer fire departments don't. But it isn't just that. It's the insurance. It's bunker gear. It's, there's a lot of things that we really had to kind of lay out that captures that. Again, great information. But yes, Lauren does have a fire department right now. They do have an antiquated vehicle, as Lillian had mentioned. However, with it being a substation, there are nuances to that. So we're working with the fire marshal on that. Obviously, we're not in the place where we can take that on and buy a brand new first responder, right? That's not something that we would be interested in doing. I'll move that information over to council, but what I did receive today is a lot more detailed than what I had previously, so that should help council along to understand the numbers. The other thing too is that we can also have the manager for that area, Gail Dubes, who I've been working with. She's very versed in it. She's great. She's available. She's more than willing to come in to talk to council just to explain their situation and why they're looking to do this. So yeah, that's an option as well for council. My second item is concerning our bylaw and policy update. So again, not a whole lot of information on this other than the ball is rolling on this. There was a little deviation in that, as council would recall, the local government was going to foot the bill for this. They still are. However, they have changed the process, so it is going to come to us first, which means that we would need the contract with the service provider, with the consultant. A little bit tricky because it was kind of the local government that sort of picked the consultant, which to be honest, I'm totally fine with. Yves Gagnon with Strategic X. I had not met Yves before. We did have a very high-level preliminary meeting. very, very knowledgeable, knows his stuff, for sure. So even in the brief time that we did meet, he had some great feedback and some great outlooks on things. So I just wanted to give council a heads up on that because local government will be looking for a contract between us and Eve, which as soon as that's received from Eve, I will move that over to council for review before we do that. It doesn't necessarily need endorsement, but I would like for council to review it before we move forward. We are looking to get this started right away. There's a lot of things that we're discussing at the table that are procedural bylaw, procurement, a lot of things that are really that need to be updated. We've been talking about this for a long time. We've been talking about it for years. So it's a great opportunity. I definitely, I'm looking forward to going through the process. But that is a quick update I wanted to provide to council, just that the contract would be with us and not specifically with the province.
All right. I think if no one has any observations or questions, we move on. You don't have anything else to? Okay. I guess we have the motion to adjourn.
M 2022-107, that the meeting is adjourned at 7:48.
Get a seconder?
I'll second it.
All those, on the question, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion is passed. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.